The amber light of dawn seeped through the gauzy curtains of Riverrun Solar, tinting the stone walls with a fragile warmth that belied the chill in Catelyn Stark's blood. She had spent the night in restless pacing, a muted shadow gliding from window to hearth and back again, her mind a wheel that would not stop turning. Ned. The name was a pulse inside her skull. Steady, terrible, unyielding. Every hour he remained in the black cells beneath the Red Keep was another thread fraying from the tapestry of her family's fate. Outside, the tumblestone flowed placid and indifferent, its surface gilded by sunrise, yet Catelyn felt only the press of urgency, a breathless demand that could not wait for couriers or councils or the slow rallying of banners. The great lords of the realm would posture and parley, but the Lannisters, Tywin Lannister most of all, moved at the pace of gold and steel. Robb marshaled the north. Edmure fumed beside Lord Hoster's sickbed. Renly flaunted his storm banner somewhere south of the capital. None of them could reach King's Landing in time. Catelyn halted beside the window embrasure, fingers curling over the cold stone sill. Ravens could wing the distance, swift as fear, but words on parchment would not pry open a dungeon gate. No, she needed a key fashioned of a fiercer metal, one that only a lion could forge. It was a notion at once repulsive and necessary, a poison-tipped arrow she would willingly notch to her bow if it would fly true. A soft knock at the solar door startled her. She turned as Maester Vyman entered with measured steps, parchment in hand, the chain around his throat clinking faintly. "More letters from Robb?" she asked, voice husked by sleeplessness. "From the north, my lady, and from the Vale as well," Vyman replied, offering the scrolls. "Yet nothing that eases the heart." She accepted them, though her attention drifted to the feathered quills and pots of ink upon her writing table. Words. Ravens. Diplomacy woven through sealed wax. All too slow, too conventional. Ned's life balanced on the edge of a sword sharpened by politics and pride. She needed something rawer, something Tywin Lannister would heed before the axe fell on her husband's noble neck. Catelyn let the scrolls rest unopened as she paced again, skirts whispering against rush-strewn flagstones. Memories flickered. The cold godswood of Winterfell, where she prayed for Brandon and Rickard Stark on the eve of their execution. The midnight ride to warn Ned of Jon Arryn's death. The confrontation with Tyrion at the inn at the crossroads that had set so many wheels spinning. Each recollection was a spindle's whirl tightening fate into a knot. Now she must find the blade that could cut it. Tywin. The man was many things, callous, relentless, proud, but above all pragmatic. He did not cling to sentiment. He measured profit in coin and blood, and he did not spill the latter unless it purchased power. Ned's imprisonment was leverage, yes, yet Jaime's captivity at Riverrun weighed equally in the balance. The thought crystallized, bright and bitter. She turned back to Vyman. "Maester," she said, "what is the fastest ship that waits in salt pans?" He blinked, surprised. "A galley, I believe, my lady. The Silver Eel. Lord Mallister uses her for swift errands. How many days to Casterly Rock by the Sunset Sea? With fair winds, perhaps 8. 8 days. Too long to reach the rock and return before King's Landing tasted Robb's steel, but perhaps fast enough to sway the Lion Lord before the cubs of winter howled at his gates." Catelyn's heartbeat quickened. A direct voyage to Casterly Rock, an audience with Tywin himself, offering the one hostage he valued above rubies and red gold. "Prepare the Ravenry," she ordered, voice gaining resolve. "I will need a letter penned in my own hand, sealed with the dire wolf and trout." Vyman bowed. "At once, my lady." "Shall I summon Ser Desmond and Ser Robin for escort?" "Yes, and have the Silver Eel provisioned for immediate departure. We sail before dusk." As the maester withdrew, Catelyn's gaze drifted to the map unfurled on the table, cloth of parchment showing the twisting rivers of the Riverlands and the jagged coastlines beyond. Her finger traced the line from Riverrun to the western shore, skipping over Harrenhal and Seaguard, pausing at the silver-blue wash of sea. It felt like reaching into the maw of a sleeping lion to tug at its tongue. But courage, she reminded herself, was a mother's milk to the children of Winterfell. She would parley with Tywin Lannister. She would trade Jaime's honor for Ned's life, if honor was the coin demanded. She would do it without Robb's counsel, without Edmure's bluster, without the slow machinery of war. Sometimes a single heartbeat decided a kingdom's rhythm. She intended this one to beat for House Stark. 3 days later, the silver eel cut across the slate-blue vastness of the sunset sea, her oars biting in perfect cadence. Salt spray cooled the perspiration on Catelyn's brow as she stood on the forecastle, watching seabirds wheel in the pale morning sky. To the north, distant cliffs mottled the horizon. To the south, open water rolled to the curve of the world. Ser Desmond Grell approached, adjusting the sword belt at his grizzled waist. "We're making good speed, my lady," he said, tone meant to reassure, yet concern etched the lines around his eyes. "But news travels fast as wind on these waters. If Lord Tywin hears of Robb's march before we anchor beneath the rock, he will hear only rumors," she insisted, though the worry gnawed at her too. "And rumors serve us. They make fathers fear for sons and lords fear for castles." Desmond inclined his head yet lingered. "The men grumble of Lannister blades and silent sisters. They fear we sail into a trap." Catelyn clasped the rail, fingers whitening. "Every road is a trap now, but if we sit idle, the jaws will close around Winterfell, Riverrun, and all the north. Tywin Lannister is no friend to us, Ser, but he is predictable. He covets strength, and we hold his strongest sword." Desmond nodded reluctantly and withdrew. Alone with her thoughts, she listened to the steady slap of water against the hull, the creak of rigging, the low murmur of sailors at their tasks. Ned would listen to such sounds in his cell, the drip of damp stone, the clank of shackles, the echo of distant footsteps. She pressed a hand to her chest as if to still her racing heart, and for a moment she felt the phantom weight of his hand covering hers, steady as the seasons. "Hold fast, Cat," she imagined him saying. "Steel must be tempered in ice before it meets the forge." Casterly Rock rose from the coast like the petrified carcass of some colossal beast, a mountain reshaped by human ambition and the veins of gold that glimmered in its heart. Towers speared the sky, windows gleaming like facets of a jewel, banners crimson and gold snapping in the wind. The silver eel anchored just beyond the breakwater, where the Lannister fleet bobbed at moorings. Longboats ferried Catelyn and her small party toward a watergate carved with roaring lion heads. She disembarked into a vaulted cavern whose walls shimmered with embedded ore, torches lighting veins of yellow metal as if the stone bled molten sunlight. Guards emerged in gilded armor, helms wrought in leonine visages. An officer stepped forward. "Ser Kevan Lannister bids you welcome to Casterly Rock, Lady Stark," he announced. "Your escort will accompany you to the Hall of the Echoing Gold." "Not Tywin, then." Prudent prelude. Catelyn offered polite nods, though she noted the way soldiers' eyes lingered on the bundles slung over Desmond's shoulder. Bundles that contained Jaime's gilded armor, the crimson cloak neatly folded, the weighty manacles that bound him in Riverrun's highest chamber. Proofs of life, proofs of leverage. They ascended spiraling stairs that seemed to tunnel through veins of precious metal, candlelight sending ripples along the polished walls. At last they emerged in a great hall where pillars shone like beaten brass and the floor mosaic depicted the Lannister lion devouring a stag, a direwolf, and a trout. Catelyn's stomach twisted at the symbolism, yet she kept her face composed. Ser Kevan awaited her beside an elaborate high table, flanked by knights in half-helm visors. Gray-flecked and prudent, Kevan inclined his head with courtesy Tywin rarely bothered to feign. "Lady Stark, your visit is unexpected, though not unwelcome. My brother rides in the field, yet I have full authority." "I will speak with Lord Tywin," Catelyn interrupted, her voice clear as rivulet ice. "The matter concerns the fate of 2 highborn prisoners and the peace of the realm. It warrants his ear." Kevan's lips pressed thin. "My lord brother is presently at Oxcross, mustering levies." "Then I have sailed for naught," she said, turning as though to depart. "My son commands near 20,000 swords marching south. By the time your lord returns, Riverrun will be ringed with northern steel. My errand was to avert such bloodshed." Her steps echoed intentionally loud on the marble before Kevin's voice halted her. "Lady Stark, wait." Brief consultation flickered behind his eyes. Calculation, caution, and the faintest glimmer of respect for her audacity. "There is a swift road through the mountains. If you will accept my escort, we can reach Oxcross in 3 days." Catelyn faced him. "Sir Kevin, I did not risk Lannister waters and walls to parley with captains. I must look Tywin Lannister in the eye and strike a bargain before swords cross in earnest." Kevin's shoulders sagged with reluctant concession. "Very well, you shall have your audience." The ride inland proved mercifully swift. Sir Kevin's honor guard cleared the mountain passes, their crimson cloaks bright against granite cliffs. Catelyn slept little, her dreams a churn of gallows shadows and golden chains. On the second night, camped beneath towering cedars, she took quill to parchment by firelight. The letter she penned to Robb was brief but heavy with hard truths. "I go to bargain for your father's life. Hold your position. Strike no blow until you hear from me. The lion may be swayed by the promise of his cub." She sealed the missive, trusting the courier to outpace the clash of armies, then stared into the dying embers. Smoke twisted upward like mute prayers to indifferent gods. Somewhere in the dark, an owl hooted, a lonely sentinel. Dawn painted the sky a bruised violet when they crested the ridge overlooking Tywin's host. 40,000 men sprawled across rolling fields in ordered camps, banners rippling. The Lion of Lannister, the Red Ox of Crakehall, the Silver Fist of Pain. Siege engines squatted like monstrous insects. The scale of it stole her breath. Kevin guided her through lines of pickets to the command pavilion. A scarlet tent large enough to house the September Guards parted, and she stepped into a space hung with rich tapestries depicting legendary victories. At a trestle table strewn with maps stood Tywin Lannister, tall and gaunt, his thin golden hair receding like winter wheat, green eyes glittering beneath heavy brows. He wore plain plate polished to a mirror and a crimson mantle clasped with a ruby lion. He glanced up, expression unreadable. "Lady Stark, I am told you carry terms." Catelyn inclined her head. "Lord Tywin, I come not as supplicant, nor as enemy, but as mother and wife."
Eddard Stark languishes in Shanks.
"Jaime Lannister does likewise. I propose an exchange." Tywin's gaze flicked to the bundled armor Desmond set upon the floor. Recognition flashed. Jaime's ornate breastplate, the lions of Casterly Rock chased in gold. A muscle ticked at the corner of Tywin's jaw. "Say your terms," he commanded, voice a low rumble. "Jaime Lannister will be delivered to you alive and unharmed. In return, Eddard Stark is freed and escorted north under safe conduct. Neither the North nor the West will draw first blood while our lords journey to their hearths. Once my husband reaches Winterfell, we will negotiate further hostages to ensure lasting peace." Silence stretched. Tywin's long fingers drummed the map, tapping the riverlands where crimson lions stood poised to pounce. "You presume much, your son's host is untested. My bannermen are seasoned." Catelyn met his gaze without flinching. 1,000 seasoned men die as surely as 1,000 green boys, my lord, and each death buys only ashes if we cannot rule what we burn." Tywin's eyes narrowed, weighing. "You speak boldly, yet what of the king? Joffrey demands Lord Stark's head." "The boy king's throne sits upon your gold," she countered. "If you withdraw your support, the crown must heed the lion's roar." A cold smile ghosted Tywin's lips. "You think to drive a wedge between me and my grandson? I think to remind you that dead men pay no debts," she said softly. "A realm in flames yields no taxes, no tribute, no legacy worth the name." Tywin studied her with that predator's calm that had broken houses and humbled kings. Minutes passed measured only by the distant clank of armor and the caw of carrion crows circling above the camp. A grim omen. At last he spoke. "And what of the Kingslayer's honor? He attacked your lord husband in the streets of King's Landing. My son would be arraigned for treason." "Honor is a horse grown lame," she replied, surprising herself with the bitterness in her tone. "It carries none of us where we wish to go." Ask me instead what justice demands, and I will answer, life for life. Both men live, each to his home. Tywin's gaze drifted to Ser Kevin, who offered the faintest shrug, counsel to caution. Then the Lion Lord turned back to Catelyn. If I accept, you will deliver Jaime at once? Within 3 days of receiving Ned. And what surety that Lord Stark will not take the field afterward? He will swear by the old gods and the new to keep the peace for 1 year and 1 day. In that time we may make better terms, or make ready for war anew. You will have my son's vow as well. Tywin folded his arms. You would risk your heir's honor on a lion's mercy? I would risk my honor, my life, all I possess, she said, voice a ragged whisper now. Because without my lord husband, the North will know no peace and neither will the realm. Again that measuring silence. Then, abruptly, Tywin Lannister inclined his head the barest fraction. Less a nod than a tilt acknowledging a move on a Syvas board. Very well. I will dispatch Ser Adam Marbrand with 500 men to King's Landing. They will present his grace with my writ demanding Lord Stark's release. When Stark crosses the trident, Jaime will ride to meet him. Betray this trust, and every river from Riverrun to Winterfell will run red with Stark blood. Catelyn exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she held. And if your writ is refused? Tywin's eyes hardened to emerald ice. Then King Joffrey will learn the cost of ignoring my counsel. But pray it does not come to that, for all our sakes. By twilight, the camp buzzed with the energy of sudden purpose. Messengers galloped, banners refurled, armor inspected. Catelyn walked the perimeter, absorbing the controlled frenzy, wondering if she had just invited salvation or doom. The deal hinged on a boy king's caprice and a queen regent's spite, fragile threads for so weighty a bargain. Under a stand of ash trees, she found Ser Kevin speaking with Ser Adam. Maps unfurled, routes discussed. At her approach they paused, offering respectful bows. Lady Stark, Kevin said, letters of safe conduct will be drafted by night's end. Your husband will ride under Lannister banners to the trident. She offered thanks, though dread still churned within her. She remembered Ned's quiet laughter, the press of his lips to her forehead the night before he left Winterfell. Hold the North, Cat. I will see you soon. The stars emerged one by one, pale fires in the velvet sky. Somewhere, Ned gazed at stone walls instead of constellations. Wait for me, she pleaded silently. Hold fast. In King's Landing, dusk settled like a bruise over the Red Keep. Sansa Stark knelt by a narrow window in her small chamber, hands clasped tight. She had heard whispers among the serving girls, rumors of a Lannister envoy, of Lord Stark's chains perhaps loosened. Hope fluttered in her breast, fragile as a moth's wings. Far below, in the gloom of the black cells, Eddard Stark stirred at the scrape of his door. 2 gold cloaks entered, torches casting wavering light across damp stone. Behind them, a tall knight in crimson cloak surveyed him with cool assessment. Lord Stark, the knight said, voice echoing like distant thunder. I am Ser Adam Marbrand. By command of Lord Tywin Lannister, I am to escort you north to the Trident. Ned pushed himself upright on aching limbs. Under what authority does Lord Tywin free me? Authority bought in blood and gold, my lord. And perhaps, Marbrand added, a hint of respect in his tone. In the courage of a lady who dares parley with lions. North of Riverrun, Jaime Lannister paced the length of his cell, counting steps. The jingle of keys disrupted his tally. Chains rattled, the door swung wide, and Ser Desmond entered with a solemn expression. Your liberty, Ser, he announced. By order of Lady Stark and Lord Rickard Karstark. Jaime arched a golden brow. And here I thought my head was bound for a pike. Not today, Desmond replied, leading him out. There's been a bargain struck. Jaime smirked. A bargain? And who, pray, has my sister sweetened this time? Desmond did not answer, but Jaime caught sight of men saddling horses in the courtyard below. Stark and Tully colors mingling with crimson of Lannister cloaks borne by Ser Kevin's escort. Interest flickered behind the Kingslayer's green eyes. A game of Sivas, then, he murmured. Pieces move, the board changes. Yet the lion always aims for the king. The water of the trident glittered copper beneath the setting sun when two columns approached from opposite banks. One beneath a river fish and a direwolf, the other beneath a roaring lion.
Trumpets sounded, banners dipped in salute.
In the river's shallows, a wooden platform awaited like neutral ground. Catelyn watched from the western bank, heart hammering as Ned Stark, bearded and gaunt yet unbowed, stepped onto the plank causeway flanked by Ser Adam Marbrand and 4 crimson-cloaked riders. From the east, Jaime Lannister sauntered forward, sunlight striking sparks from his gilded armor newly polished. Time slowed to the rhythm of her pulse as the two men converged. Ned's gray eyes locked on hers across the river, the tenderness in them piercing through fatigue and captivity. Jaime's gaze flicked from Ned to the northern host arrayed behind Catelyn and back again. Assessing, amused, impossible to read. They crossed, each to the opposite shore, guardians ushering them to waiting horses. Ned mounted a gray destrier, wincing as stiff muscles protested. Jaime swung onto a white courser with lazy grace, flashing a sardonic salute. Catelyn raised a trembling hand as Ned rode toward her. Dust rose about the hooves like incense, and the moment he reached her side she pressed her palm to his cheek, feeling the roughness of unshaven weeks, the heat of living flesh, proof against fear. His hand covered hers, and for an instant the tumult of armies, the ambitions of lords, the schemes of lions, all fell away. "You came south for our girls," she whispered, tears burning. "I would sail to the world's end for you." His smile was small, weary, yet lit with fierce pride. "And you struck a bargain with Tywin Lannister. Ice in your veins, Cat." "I had no choice," she said. "We always have." "A choice," he answered softly. "You chose our family, and so do I." Behind them, horns sounded commands. Banners shifted as hosts prepared to withdraw. The fragile accord woven upon the river would hold, if chance, pride, and vengeance did not cut its threads. Yet for this heartbeat, Catelyn allowed herself to breathe. Ned Stark was free, and though winter yet threatened, hope rode with them northward, its banner pale but unbroken. Far to the south, in the Red Keep's tallest tower, Queen Cersei crushed Tywin's writ in her hand, emerald eyes blazing. Joffrey paced, face flushed with indignation. "He cannot dictate to his king," the boy snarled. But the Queen Regent's silence was a coiled serpent. She stared out over the city, the setting sun wreathing her hair in molten gold, and considered the nature of power, how swiftly it shifted when lions turned upon one another. Tywin had moved a piece across the board without her blessing. But Cersei Lannister had pieces of her own, and a game yet to play. The pact was forged, the prisoners exchanged, but the realm was far from healed. Like cracks beneath winter ice, tension spread unseen. Stannis Baratheon brooded on Dragonstone. Renly whispered of roses and revolution. Robb Stark's bannermen shouted for vengeance denied. And in the high halls of Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister studied new maps, new schemes, pondering whether a single year and a day could reshape a kingdom, or merely sharpen the knives for the reckoning to come. Yet for the moment, on the long road north, beneath a sky awash in summer stars, Catelyn rode beside Ned, their hands brushing now and again, silent promises passing between them. Ahead lay Winterfell, behind them the roar of distant lions. Between was the brittle peace she had won. Peace paid not in gold, but in courage, sacrifice, and the fragile hope that even in a world of iron and fire, a mother's love might forge alliances no sword could sever. The night air smelled of pine and promise as the Stark retinue wound through the riverlands, torches flickering like captured constellations. And though the road was long and perilous, Catelyn held her gaze on the northern horizon, where dawn would one day break over gray stone walls and the laughter of children unafraid. For now, that was enough. The hiss of wind through river reeds masked the distant clatter of armor as Ned Stark rode northward beneath the dusky sky. Each hoofbeat drummed against the moist earth like a heartbeat returned from the dead. Yet his thoughts were anything but restful. Freedom tasted of cold iron and the copper tang of caution. Even the familiar hush of gathering night felt altered, half-remembered. Ghosts of the dungeons still clung to him. The fetid air, the ceaseless drip of unseen water, the knowledge that his own breath might be the last in darkness, forged into his bones like frost-pitted scars. Catelyn rode beside him with the poise of a queen and the same relentless focus that had carried her across the sunset sea. She spoke little, but her presence was a steady firebank at his flank, warming the spaces the cells had chilled. Behind them wound a column of sworn shields, Tully fish and stark wolves mingling in tentative camaraderie, still watchful of the Lannister escort cantering a short distance eastward, crimson cloaks billowing against the gloam. Ned felt the oddest kinship with those red-clad riders. All men tethered to precarious oaths, their swords leashed by the fragile accord hammered out on the trident's muddy shingle. He glanced sidelong at his lady, studying the curve of her jaw in torchlight. "What cost have you paid, Cat?" he asked beneath his breath. Her gaze remained fixed ahead. "Only what was demanded. A year and a day of peace," he murmured. "And Tywin does nothing without a ledger." She did not dispute him. Instead, her gloved hand found his and squeezed. The touch said what words could not, that bargains, once struck, must be honored or broken bones would be the realm's new coin. Far behind, Jaime Lannister spurred his white courser west, leaving the trident's cool mists for the drier plains beyond Harrenhal's looming silhouette. Ser Kevin had insisted on a modest guard of 50 picked men, though Jaime suspected the true sentinel rode at the head of the column. His own reputation, razor-edged and half-mad from confinement. He tossed a glance at the Stark-held banners dwindling to specks. "They kept me alive," he drawled to no one in particular. Perhaps thinking a headless lion is quieter than a roaring one. No one laughed. The men of the West understood the brittle humor of their lord's favorite son. It was a barbed shield hiding uneasy questions. Jaime ignored them. The grating echo of Riverrun's walls haunted him still. Tully spears, stark eyes, the suffocating weight of honor invoked like a bludgeon. Now freedom lay before him in each lengthening furlong. Yet his mind kept sliding to the memory of Ned Stark. Gray eyes rimmed with exhaustion, the surety of purpose not yet burned from them. A man so rooted in duty he'd barter his own safety for a kingdom's brief reprieve. Would I have traded places? Jaime wondered, gripping the reins tighter. The notion scratched at him like an unhealed scab, irritating in its persistence. A distant thunderhead flashed, revealing Harrenhal's twisted towers glowing eerily against sheet lightning. Jaime felt something stir beneath his practiced nonchalance. Foreboding, or perhaps fascination. Storms never chose sides. They scattered ruin with equal indifference. South of the Trident, Cersei Lannister paced the length of Maegor's holdfast in booted fury, soft salls swallowed by thick Myrish carpets while silent maids shrank into alcoves. Moonlight streamed through arched windows, silvering her hair and casting her face into harsh relief. Joffrey trailed close, the hem of his night cloak brushing the marble. "He humiliated me," the boy king hissed, small fists balled in restless fury. "Grandfather dares command from afar. He strips me of prisoners, of justice." Cersei halted, whirling. "Hush, never let others sense you are unsettled." Her voice held iron, but fear pulsed beneath. Tywin's handwritten demand lay folded on a side table, its seal, lion rampant, already cracked. Beneath the cold script lurked a chilling reality. Her father had wagered a sliver of the realm's obedience on this accord, and Tywin Lannister never gambled on whim. "Lord Stark was mine to punish," Joffrey persisted, cheeks flushing blotchy red, eyes glittering. "Ser Eilen readied the sword. But now the North is leashed," she ground out. "For a time, and that time must be used." Joffrey frowned. "Grandfather's time, not mine." "No," she drew him close, palms on his shoulders. "Our time. We shall exploit this ceasefire to solidify the throne." Gold cloaks drilled daily, food stores filled, allies softened with largesse. "And when the year wanes, we crush them," he finished, lips curving. Cersei kissed his brow, though her gaze drifted north, past battlements and starlit streets, toward a horizon she could not see. Father believes he guides the lion's paw, she mused, but he forgets the cub draws blood with its own claws. In Winterfell's gods would the leaves side with the scent of loam and impending storm. Bran Stark sat on Hodder's shoulders beneath the red-leaved weirwood, wolf's blood cloak pooling about him. News of his parents' return had raced ahead on raven wings, each thunderous caw promising the impossible.
Ned alive, Catelyn triumphant, heime Lannister frid.
Bran's heart fluttered with conflicting sparks. Joy, dread, curiosity. Kingslayer bad, Hodder muttered. Bran let his fingers brush the carved face of the heart tree. Father will handle him, he whispered, though his own mind teemed with visions of daggers in the dark and a boy tumbling from a tower. The face in the bark seemed to weep bloody sap for every fragile oath men swore then shattered. Above, summer ravens flapped, restless. Bran's dreams, wolfish, winged, formless, had grown sharper since his father's imprisonment. Strange glimpses of a snowy crypt, of chains falling away, of lions prowling beneath rock. Tonight the air thrummed with portent so thick he could taste it on his tongue, metallic and bright. He closed his eyes. Beyond the rustle of leaves he heard faint footfalls, Maester Luwin approaching to fetch him to supper, or perhaps Robb striding with grey wind in his wake. Yet the sound carried a subtlety neither possessed, lighter, measured, as if walking a narrow bridge in one's mind. Bran's eyes snapped open, halting the mystery for another night. Robb Stark's camp sprawled across the plains south of Moat Cailin, ringed by timber palisades and watchfires crackling crimson amid the dark. He sat in the command tent with Great John Umber, Roose Bolton, and Theon Greyjoy, tension thick as smoke. "My mother counsels patience," he read from her letter, voice steady yet thrumming with suppressed emotion. "We hold until word arrives of father safe at Winterfell." Bolton's pale eyes narrowed. "A lion's promise is woven of cobwebs. Each hour we sit idle grants Lord Tywin fresh coin to hire freeriders." The Great John snorted, swigging strong wine. "Bugger his coin. A Northman's word is iron. If Cat believes this pact holds, I'll sheath my sword. For now." Theon leaned forward, sea-green eyes alight. "Tywin may honor the trade. Aye, but the Queen? The boy king? I would sooner trust a Myrish whore to keep her legs closed." Robb tapped the parchment, knuckles taut. "Mother knew the risk and still forged the bargain. I will give her year and day, but not a stride more. Our men will drill, supply lines strengthened. And when we march again, we shall not stop at the neck." He looked around the lamplit faces. In each he saw faith tempered by hunger for retribution. A delicate tether bound them to restraint. Once snapped, none would halt the avalanche. At Oxcross, Tywin Lannister dismissed his council at moonrise, sending bannermen to quarters while he lingered over maps. Candles guttered low, shadows long across parchment realms. He traced a finger along the neck, the veil, the riverlands, fault lines stitched together by brittle peace. Ser Kevan entered silently. The ravens confirmed Stark crossed the neck 2 days past. The escort reports no incident. Tywin did not look up. Good. And Jaime? Near Casterly Rock by now. A soft exhale, almost a sigh. "My son has always mistaken ease for invincibility. Perhaps captivity tempered him." Kevan hesitated. "And if not, then we temper him again." Tywin sat back, eyes glittering. "But the greater game has only begun, brother. This truce buys space to herd the other players." Kevan listened while Tywin outlined moves as cold and intricate as a maester's astrolabe. Promises to House Frey, secret gold to the Reach, whispered threats to Dorne. Each strand wove a net tightening around the Iron Throne. Tywin's throne in truth, if not in name. "And the Queen?" Kevan asked at length. "My daughter believes herself the puppet master," Tywin said, the faintest curl to his lip. "She will dance to our music when the time comes, or she will learn silence." The candles sputtered their last, plunging the tent into darkness broken only by coals glowing like embered rubies. For a heartbeat Kevan heard nothing but distant crickets. Yet over it all loomed the hush of an empire being reshaped in one man's silent design. The road north wound through fields of late summer barley, rippling like pale fires under daybreak sun. Ned's escort kept a steady pace, wary but unmolested. On the third dawn they approached the crossroads at the Green Fork and found the inn, scene of Tyrion's arrest, blackened and deserted, its charred timbers jutting like skeletal fingers toward the sky. Catelyn reined in, jaw tight. "My folly began here," she said. Ned touched her arm. "Your courage began here." She managed a wan smile. Strange how the same decision can bear both fruit and thorns. They pressed on. By midday they reached a lonely stretch of King's Road where willows drooped over quiet pools. Ned dismounted to drink and found the water cool as melted snow, clarity reflecting the clouds. He cupped his hands, pausing at the sight of his own reflection. Hair gone to gray at the temples, cheeks hollowed, eyes rimmed by fatigue. Yet there too he saw resolve hardened to tempered steel. A tone of hooves startled him. He rose to find Ser Adam Marbrand approaching, helm under arm. The Lannister knight bowed. "Lord Stark, may I speak plain?" "You may. The road ahead forks at Oldstones. My orders end there. You and your lady will have free passage afterward." "I know." Yet whispers run swift on the wind. Bandits prowl, some wearing no colors but wolves' pelts, others lions' manes bleached. Men who feast on chaos. Ned regarded him. "What do you propose?" "A token company to Winterfell." Ned shook his head. "Our peace depends on visible trust. Your cloak on northern soil with sour tempers already strained." Marbrand hesitated. "Then at least accept this." He produced a small wooden box. Inside lay a ring forged of pale gold, set with a ruby carved in the Lannister lion. "Show this if challenged by my kin. It marks you under my personal protection." Ned accepted the token, a curious gift to a prisoner newly freed. "A knight pays his debts," Marbrand said simply. "I witnessed Lady Stark's nerve in Tywin's pavilion. I cannot forget it." Ned inclined his head. In another life, honor might have bound them as comrades. But in this one, all bonds were frayed. Thunder rolled low over the Dreadfort as Roose Bolton read Maester Vyman's Raven to his maester, a faint smile flickering. "A lull can prove sharper than a blade," he noted. "Men accustomed to war grow restless in peace. Restlessness breeds errors." The maester, Qyburn, dismissed from the citadel, now welcomed where no conscience interfered, nodded eagerly. "Errors we can harvest." Bolton's pale eyes wandered to the leech-glutted brazier glowing at his side. "Write to my son. Tell him to abide beneath the sigil of flayed man, but to watch Robb Stark's back for the first sign of weakness." Qyburn dipped his quill. "And if the sign never comes?" "It always comes," Bolton murmured, gaze fixed on writhing sanguine shapes, "especially when trust is commanded by treaty rather than earned in battle." Night settled over the neck like a shroud stitched with unseen teeth. Marsh gas floated luminous wisps that coiled around legs of horses, spooking them. Ghostly cries of bog owls echoed. The company bivouacked on a rare dry hummock, guards triple-posted. Catelyn tended to Ned's wrists where the chafed skin still bore Shackle's bruises. She spread a poultice of comfrey and honey, fingers gentle yet purposeful. "I owe you more than I can repay," he murmured. She met his gaze. "Then repay me by living." Her voice broke on the words. She pressed her forehead to his shoulder, tears silent. He held her close until the marsh murmurs faded into the hush of shared heartbeat. Beyond their tent, sergeants drilled watch rotations. Direwolves howled far off, summer and gray wind ranging with scouts. The sound sent shivers through the men, yet bolstered Ned. The wolves of Winterfell were once more beneath the same sky as their lord. At Riverrun, Edmure Tully strode along battlements, fists flexing on the parapet. Moonlit rivers glittered like twin serpents encircling the castle, yet he felt caged. Jaime Lannister's release gnawed him raw. Every splash against stone seemed a sneer. Ser Brynden Blackfish joined him, cloak snapping. "Brooding won't mend broken pride." "It was not my pride," Edmure retorted. It was my duty to hold the Kingslayer. Cat gave him away like a trinket. Brynden arched a brow. Would you prefer Ned Stark's head? Edmure scowled. There must have been another way. There is always another way, the Blackfish said softly, gaze drifting to the dark horizon. But it is seldom kinder. They stood in silence until the flutter of wings announced a raven. The squire retrieved the message. Edmure slit the seal glumly. As he read, his shoulders sagged. Lord Walder Frey demands assurance for his crossings. He crumpled the parchment. The old weasel sniffed out this truce and smells profit. Brynden's laugh was short. Frey can smell profit in a beggar's bowl. Write him politely. Promise a seat at any future peace conference. Then pray peace survives long enough for the old man to claim it. Edmure stared southward where torches of war no doubt still burned unseen. Peace feels like standing on river ice in spring. You know the thaw will come. Dawn's first pallor touched the tower rims of Winterfell as Ned and Catelyn crested the ridge. Below, the ancient castle stirred. Bells pealing, gates yawning wide, banners rising. The dire wolf of Stark streamed proud and fierce against the morning breeze, and Ned's chest swelled with something that felt like both triumph and humility. They rode through the gatehouse, flanked by cheering small folk and men-at-arms. Bran awaited atop Hodder, Rickon clinging to Maester Luwin's robe, eyes wide as moons. Robb dismounted first, embracing his mother, then his father with a fierce strength that belied his 19 years. Winterfell stands, Ned said, voice rough. Because you taught us how, Robb answered. Summer loped around them, gray wind at his flank, tails whisking. The wolves' tongues lolled in what passed for lupin grins, yet their golden eyes scanned every face, guardians ever wary. Inside the great hall fires roared. The smell of fresh bread and boiling stews mingled with resinous pine smoke. Courtiers pressed close. Old Nen wept openly. Ned greeted each but soon pled fatigue. Catelyn guided him toward their bedchamber, but as they approached the stair, he paused before the heart of the hall. My lord, she queried. Ned turned, surveying the bustle. Servants scurrying, guards posting, children laughing. I have dreamt of this, he said softly. And in those dreams I feared I would awaken chained. She pressed her hand to his. Then hold to waking. He nodded, drawing silent strength from the stones. Yet at that moment, in the far shadowed corner, Maester Luwin conferred with Lord Roderick Castle, brows knit. Ned recognized the posture of troubling tidings withheld until proper moment. There would be no rest. Days unfolded like sparse petals on a winter rose. Ned submitted to Maester Luwin's ministrations. The bruises faded to dull ochre, the gauntness eased beneath hearty meals. Yet he spent hours in the Godswood, kneeling before the weirwood, eyes closed as if communing with something deeper than root or soil. Robb oversaw drilling, trebuchets refitted, archers tested, cavalry tactics sharpened. His commanders argued, Umber urging attack before the South regained footing. Bolton counseled patience with that serpentine calm. Manderley insisted on reinforcing Moat Cailin. Robb listened, weighed, but his father's return altered every calculus. Where once he was the young wolf unleashed, now he balanced filial duty against Banner's expectations. One smoky afternoon Robb found Ned in the solar poring over letters from White Harbor. Manderley pledges fresh levies should the truce falter, Ned said. Yet he cautions that food stores dwindle after last winter's harshness. Robb folded arms. We can feed them from the harvest if we remain at peace. But come spring we march. Ned met his gaze. Robb, war may spare no one. Have you considered bending knee if concessions can be won? Never, Robb answered, heat flar. Ingenieur. The Lannisters spilled northern blood. Sansa is still hostage. Ned's eyes softened with pain at her name. I have not forgotten, but we must wield patience like any other weapon. Robb paced to the window. Patience is a blade that grows dull in the sheath. Ned rose despite stiffness. And rage is wildfire, it burns friend as quickly as foe. Trust me, son. I have stood too close to wildfire's spark. Rob's shoulders slumped. Teach me, then, how to wait without surrendering purpose. Ned clasped his shoulder. By remembering who you fight for, not what. Hundreds of leagues away, in a torchlit crypt beneath Casterly Rock, Jaime Lannister knelt before the marble effigy of his mother, Joanna. Candlelight flickered over her serene face. Guilt, sharp as new-forged steel, cut through his usual bravado. I wonder what you would make of me now, he said softly, voice echoing off vaulted stone. Captured, ransomed, traded like a cask of Dornish. Footsteps creaked. Tywin emerged from the shadows, expression unreadable. There are more costly casks, he said. Jaime smirked without rising. Still, I prefer to believe I'm worth 2 hogsheads at least. Tywin's eyes flicked across the tombs. Worth, Jaime, is measured by leverage, not sentiment. Jaime pushed to his feet. Chains of memory clattered within. Leverage, you had it with Ned Stark's head on a spike. Yet you chose truce. I chose future. Tywin's voice held iron flake. And you will help secure it. How? You'll ride to King's Landing. Serve as shield to your nephew. Command the Kingsguard with visible loyalty. Meanwhile, you will listen. Whisper in Joffrey's ear when Queen and Council war. Jaime raised a brow. And if Cersei's scheming crosses your own? You will decide which lion you serve. Always a game with you, father. Tywin's gaze sharpened. Life is the game. Stop playing and you die. Jaime met that glare, recognizing the ruthless will within. For all his japes, he knew Tywin's vision spanned generations. Jaime had once rejected such long view, trading oaths for a single Mad King's blood. Now the realm seemed another board, pieces sliding at his father's dictate. Yet a small voice, perhaps his mother's, whispered of another path. If leverage determined worth, could a man choose to become worthless to tyranny? The notion unsettled him, but he smiled, masking turmoil. Very well. King's Landing awaits. At least the wine's better than river runs. Tywin turned away, satisfied. Jaime lingered, brushing dust from Joanna's marble sleeve. Forgive me, he murmured. I may yet wager your memory on better odds. The bite of coming winter touched the riverlands early, crisping leaves into copper flurries that swirled about campsites. At one such site, Arya Stark watched from a thorny hedgerow as a band of ragged sellswords cooked hare over skewers. She had slipped free of the Red Keep weeks before her father's liberation. Information she did not yet know, and spent her nights under hedges, barns, and for one terrifying stint, the hold of a grain barge. Now, perched near a lonely road, she assessed the sellswords' disposition. Their gear was mismatched. Pieces of Lannister crimson, Tyrell green, Dothraki leather dyed black. They joked in low Valyrian, but Arya caught enough Westerosi tongue to know they cursed Joffrey for cutting pay. She crept closer. Needle lay snug within its sheath at her hip. The memory of Syrio Farrell guided each silent step. Swift as shadows, quick as cats. She needed information, road safe, whether the North truly marched, any sign of her family. She'd slipped past gold cloaks tracking King's Landing deserters, but news traveled slower than flight. A twig snapped. One sellsword jerked his head. Who's there? Arya froze, merged with bracken. Her breath rasped shallow. Her heart hammered like a smith's forge. The man prowled forward, sword drawn. Danger swelled, too close. She weighed running. Yet the scuffed boots would outrun her on open ground. She eased needle free inch by inch, mind racing. Then hoofbeats thundered beyond the camp, a dozen riders bursting onto the road. Torches flared, revealing the sigil of House Tully. The sellswords cursed and scattered. Arya pressed herself flat as rushing horses churned dirt. Spread out, a captain barked. Small folk reported raiders. When the chaos faded, Arya emerged cautiously. One rider still lingered, checking bodies. She recognized the Blackfish badge. Hope flared. Stealing courage, she stepped into the open. Sir. Her voice cracked. He pivoted, sword half drawn. Girl, speak your name. Arya, Arya, she swallowed. Of House Stark. Recognition widened his eyes. 7 hells. Come quickly. He bundled her onto his horse, racing toward Riverrun. Arya clung to his cloak, heart soaring and trembling. Home was north, but family was nearer, perhaps safe at Winterfell. She would find them, needle in hand, swift and silent as water dancing through the river reeds. Winterfell's courtyard rang with hammer on anvil as Mikken reforged links for the main gate. Sparks sprayed into the dusk. Ned watched from the archery, but arms folded. Despite regained strength, his dreams twisted with iron-cold dread. Visions of an antlered helm split, of black feathers soaked crimson, of a dire wolf snarling over a field of ash. Each dawn he woke with the taste of smoke and sorrow. That evening he supped with his family. The hearth roared, laughter mingled with harp music, for Robb had invited a wandering bard to lift spirits. Yet between verses, tensions coiled. Rickon's violent nightmares, Bran's faraway stares, Catelyn's fretting over Sansa's absence. When the household retired, Ned lingered near the weirwood door. Bran approached, halting at crutch length. "Father," he said quietly. The trees whisper. Ned knelt to meet his eyes. "What do they say?" Bran's brow furrowed. "Winter may sleep, but it wakes hungry, and wolves are stronger in packs." Ned felt a chill. His son's dreams bore depth beyond years. He clasped Bran's hand. "Then we will keep the pack together." Bran gazed past him at the black sky. Storms come from south and east, but from the north. He trailed off, shivering despite mild air. Ned straightened, escorting Bran inside. But Bran's words, from the north, planted seeds of unease. Nothing had threatened from the lands of always winter since before the conquest. Yet old Nan's stories gnawed at Ned's buried fears. On Dragonstone's wind-lashed battlements, Stannis Baratheon stood face upturned to a merciless sky. Beside him knelt a red-robed woman, hair shining like copper midnight. "The comet across the firmament heralds your cause," Melisandre intoned. "The false King Joffrey and his Lannister puppeteers cower behind their walls of lies. Even now the North regathers behind the wolf. The realm fractures." "Good," Stannis cut in. Melisandre's lips parted in a pleased smile. "You will be the Lord of Ash turned to light." Stannis glanced toward the sea where black sails bobbed. "And what of this northern truce? Can it endure? No mortal web woven of fear and gold can stand before the Lord of Light." She rose, eyes blazing. "Time your strike to the winter solstice. Fires long banked will devour their keepers." Stannis considered. Ned Stark's honor had once guided him. Now the man returned home under Lannister sufferance. That contradiction reeked of rot beneath veneer. He would carve away the canker. Yet to challenge two foes demanded timing like a blade's edge. He turned to Melisandre. "Very well. We strike when the lion and wolf lock jaws anew." And in that promise, Dragonstone's carved gargoyles seemed to leer, as if glad to witness the realm's every fracture widen. Snow fell the first night of the 10th moon, early flurries swirling white ghosts across Winterfell's battlements. Robb watched from a tower window, gray wind silent beside him. Ned joined him, cloak drawn. "The first snow of winter," Ned observed. Robb traced a finger down frost-specked glass. "Omen. Of what? Change." Robb inhaled deeply. "Father, a raven arrived from the twins. Lord Walder demands betrothals for the safe crossing of our armies when next we march." Ned's brow furrowed. "Crossing rights we do not yet need. Perhaps." Robb turned. "But Walder Frey glimpses tomorrow's war in today's frost." Ned placed a hand on his shoulder. "War will come soon enough. Let us meet it on our terms." Robb nodded, though his eyes lingered on snowflakes spiraling into dark. In each swirl he saw warriors frozen on red fields, mothers weeping, banners torn. Yet he could not deny the primal thrill pulsing through his veins. The call of duty, of blood. The dire wolf beside him growled low. Somewhere beyond the wall a horn blew, for short blasts. Stranger approaching from the south. Moments later, Torches escorted a traveler cloaked in dusk blue. Ned descended to the courtyard as the visitor dismounted. The hood fell. Arya, eyes fierce, cheeks smudged. "Ned!" she cried, using his name as when small. He caught her, shocked and overjoyed. She trembled but would not break. Catelyn rushed from the hall, gasping. Bran's shout echoed. Even stoic guards grinned. Yet amid reunion, Ned noted the steel of needle at Arya's hip, the wary flicker of her gaze. She had crossed lands alone, hunted, and something wild had edged her features. Inside by the hearth, she recounted flight from the city, the Cell's words, the Tully patrol. Ned's hands fisted at Sansa's absence. Arya's news carried little comfort. Sansa held as court companion to the queen. Catelyn's face paled. "We must plan her retrieval." Ned nodded, tactician's mind turning. Yet he caught Arya studying him. "Father," she said softly, "is peace worth Sansa's tears?" Silence settled thick. Ned at last answered, "Not if bought with her freedom." Robb straightened, eyes alight. "Then we strike before the year ends." Bolton would smile at that. Umber would howl jubilation. But Ned raised a hand. "Not yet. We need allies beyond our borders. We ride to White Harbor, to Bear Island, to the Mountains clans. And we seek the Vale. Lioness' sister's son sits quiet too long." Robb exhaled. "A greater war." Ned's voice was low but firm. "A war to break the wheel that crushed your sisters. And I will lead it beside you." Catelyn reached across the table, claiming his hand. "Together then." Beyond the walls, snow drifted heavier, muffling distant howls. Winter laid its first true claim upon the north, and within Winterfell's ancient keep, the Starks gathered close, a pack forged anew by adversity. But across the realm, wolves were not the only predators stirred by cold. Lions plotted by golden hearths, stags sharpened antlers, dragons in exile tested fledgling wings across narrow seas. And in the farthest forgotten places, ice whispered of long nights yet to fall. The fragile peace, born of courage and barter, nursed by hope, shivered beneath the weight of those gathering portents. A year and a day might prove eternity's barest breath. Yet if winter taught anything, it was this. When cold darkness closed, hearts burned brightest. So the north banked its fires, tempered steel, and honed resolve, while the realm's silent stars wheeled overhead, heedless of mortal bargains. For destiny, like winter, answers to no truce, nor spares those who forget the old wisdom. A lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. The wind keened around Winterfell's towers like a mourning woman, yet inside the castle's stout walls torches blazed, hearths roared, and life pressed onward, tentative, resolute. Dawn's watery light scraped the ramparts when Ned Stark convened a council in the Great Hall, calling lords, captains, and trusted retainers to take their measure of the fragile peace. Robb sat at his right, greaves dusted with early snow, Catelyn at his left, hands folded over parchment. Arya perched unobtrusively behind her mother, the hood of her wolf-gray cloak shadowing eyes still sharp from the road. Bran in his wheeled chair, Rickon fidgeting beside him, Maester Luwin, Lord Greatjon, Roose Bolton, Meege Mormont, Galbart Glover, Roderick Castle. The hall brimmed with a solidarity no banner could depict, yet every northerner could feel vibrating beneath their skin like distant thunder. Ned rose. The hush fell deep. "We are bound by treaty to hold our swords for a year and a day," he said, voice carrying to the rafters. "So long as Joffrey Baratheon keeps his word and Sansa remains unharmed. So long as Tywin Lannister honors his pledge and no Lannister host crosses our borders, we will sharpen steel but sheath it." Muted growls rippled down the benches. Greatjon's fist thumped the table. Bolton's chill gaze flicked across the assembly, gauging appetites. Ned lifted a gauntlet hand. "Yet we are not children waiting for another blow. In these months we must strengthen alliances, secure grain against long winter, and protect our people from the pillagers who creep wherever law sleeps." He unrolled a cracked leather map of the north. "I shall ride southeast to White Harbor with Lady Catelyn and a small company. Lord Wyman Manderly stands ready to provision us with fish and grain. but we must renew oaths face to face. Lord Glover will escort supplies up the King's Road under heavy guard. Ser Roderick will overhaul the garrison at Moat Cailin. Lady Meage's fleet will scour the shivering sea for raiders. And Lord Bolton, Ned met the leech pale eyes. You will raise militias from the weeping water to the last river. Hammer them into a disciplined host, ready should truce crack. Bolton inclined his head with an expression that might have been a smile. They will be honed as quietly as ice beneath snow, my lord. Robb cleared his throat. I will remain at Winterfell to oversee drilling and supplies. His voice steadied. And I will send ravens to the Eyrie. Jon Arryn's widow owes my mother loyalty, and her son, though young, may prove a valuable ally if properly guided. Arya shifted, biting back a retort about Lisa Arryn's nerves of wet parchment. Instead she fixed on Bolton, memorizing the cadence of his promise. If father could trust such a man, so could she, while never unsheathing her caution. When the council dispersed, Ned beckoned Arya to the solar. Morning gusts rattled the shutters. You carry secrets, he said gently, turning the key in the oak-bound door. Tell me of the Red Keep. Arya recounted whispered stories. Sansa's stiff courtesy mask, Joffrey's spiteful jests, Cersei's hawk eyes, gold cloaks patrolling like hounds scenting guilt. She described the hush after Lord Stark left for the small council that day, how Varys slithered through halls, how Ser Meryn's hand gripped Sansa's arm hard enough to bruise. She told of the blonde knight in moonstone armor, Ser Aerys Oakheart, smuggling messages between the Queen and Grand Maester Pycelle, the hush that fell when little King Tommen wept at practice, the way Cersei's smiles never reached her eyes. Ned listened, face a granite mask. When she finished, he pressed Needle's pommel. You were brave, he said, yet bravery is not licensed to court death. Promise me you'll train under Ser Roderick while I ride south. She bristled. I learned from Syrio Farrell. Ser Roderick's hands shake when it's cold. Ned's stern look softened. Ser Roderick survived 2 winters and 3 wars. There's steel in each tremor. After a pause he added, and there is another teacher who might suit your steps. Before she could ask, he motioned to the door. Jory Castle entered with a lean, dark-haired woman wearing rough leggings, a sailor's shirt, and a long knife at her hip. Her eyes were the blue-gray of a storm at sea. Arya, Ned said. This is Lady Lyanna Mormont's cousin, Asha Sunderly. She fought raiders off Bear Island's coast and wields an or as deftly as a spear. She will instruct you in movement and situational awareness, in staying unseen. Asha's smile flashed like sunlight on waves. To hide in plain sight, little wolf, you must first learn to deceive your shadow. Arya grinned ferally. 3 days later, the Stark Tully party rode from Winterfell as snowflakes spiraled in lazy arabesques. Catelyn watched battlements recede, heart heavy at leaving 3 sons behind, Robb, Bran, and Rickon, and newfound daughter Arya. But she reminded herself the North treated distance lightly. Ravens stitched families together over miles of winter and stone. At her side, Ned rode in silence, huddled in a gray bear fur cloak, breath fogging. Past the neck, wetlands gave way to wide hoar-frosted plains where the King's Road cut a scar through heather. Scouts spied only shifting snow and the rare figure of a crofter bundling reeds. Tyranny of distance, Catelyn reflected. Every mile Tywin's writ lost power in the face of wind and silence. They reached White Harbor on the 7th day, keels of Manderley trading cogs peeking through morning mist. The harbor bustled despite the chill. Harpooners unloading pale bellyfuls of winter cod, coopers renting the air with the clack of new casks, gulls crying overhead. Lord Wyman Manderley himself waddled down the quay to greet them, a mountain of man in ermine-lined wool, cheeks ruddy as autumn apples. Welcome, Lord and Lady Stark, he boomed, voice rich as aged port. White Harbor is ever your friend. Come inside before ice nips your toes clean off. Within the new castle's marbled feasting hall, Wyman's youngest daughter, Winifred, led them to a table groaning beneath wheels of ripe white cheese, bread still steaming, and silver trays of smoked eel. As they supped, Wyman unfurled parchments. Grain tallies, ship registries, letters of marque for longships tasked to chase raiders. "We can spare you 30 tons of grain each month," he declared, "and salted fish enough for garrisons long into deep winter. My only concern, my lord, is the narrow sea. Braavosi galleys raid with impunity these days. Word is the Iron Throne's navy lies idle. Coins spent on velvet doublets rather than sails. Ned dipped bread in honeyed wine. If the crown neglects its seas, we must guard ours. Could the merman's court outfit heavier escorts?" "Aye," Wyman said, jowls quivering. "But I would seek something in return. Trade privileges when the thaw comes, and the hand of my nephew Ser Marlin for one of your nieces." Catelyn shared a glance with Ned. "The match would be subject to their consent," Ned said. "Yet we are open to the notion. As for trade, Winterfell honors debt in good faith." Wyman clapped massive hands. "Splendid. Then we drink to friendship stronger than a maester's chains." They sealed accords in ink and clasp of arms. That night, in a guest room overlooking Frosted River, Catelyn watched Ned pace. "Your brow furrows, my lord," she said, brushing snow crystals from her cloak. Ned halted at the window. News from Pike arrived on Wyman's ravens. Balon Greyjoy has declared independence from the Iron Throne. Again, Catelyn's stomach clenched. Robb wrote that Theon proposed seeking his father's fleet.
Ned nodded grimly.
Such a venture would be folly. Balon's ambition never sleeps. He waited for cracks to widen before striking. "Do we recall Theon? I sent word already." But ravens cannot outrace a son's longing for father's pride. Silence fell, heavy with foreboding. Catelyn reached for Ned's hand. "We brace for many storms. Stand with me." "Always," he swore. In King's Landing dusk spread violet shadows across the Red Keep. Sansa stood on a balcony overlooking Blackwater Bay, the chill sea breeze twisting her auburn hair. Down at the docks, lanterns bobbed like fireflies. Above dark water, she imagined each distant light a wish set afloat. Some for fortune, others for love, still others for revenge. Her own wishes she kept locked behind cool courtesy, just as her septa had taught. Courtesy was a lady's armor. Cersei appeared in the arched doorway, silk dress whispering. "Beautiful, isn't it?" the queen asked, voice purr-soft. "The city lights at dusk." Sansa curtsied. "Yes, your grace. It reminds me of Winterfell's harvest bonfires." Cersei's red-painted mouth curved. "Such innocence. Tell me, do you miss your family terribly?" Sansa managed composure. "Very much, your grace. Well, you are to be my daughter soon enough." Fingers cold as polished jade brushed Sansa's cheek. The gentle caress belied an iron grip. "A mother guides her child to survive among wolves," Cersei murmured, "and in turn expects obedience." Sansa swallowed. "I strive to please." "Good." Cersei's smile thinned. "Because new guests arrive tomorrow. Men from House Westerling seeking trade concessions. You will dine at Joffrey's side and display perfect Stark dignity. Our good lords need reassurance that the North remains tractable." "Yes, your grace." "Run along then." Cersei retreated into gilt pillars. Sansa exhaled shakily. Far below, a gull screamed, wheeling away toward open water. She wondered whether gulls ever lost their way or whether sea winds always whispered a path home. Not far away, Tyrion Lannister surveyed the court from the Hand's dais, newly returned from Casterly Rock by father's command. The small council meeting had been a tedious parade of petty coin shortages and chain-of-office squabbling. Now, evening free, he sought wine and clear thought. Podrick shuffled after him, arms full of scrolls. "My lord, the royal steward requests inventory lists on the granaries of Rosby and Stokeworth."
Later, pot.
"Order supper." Pod looked relieved to escape. Tyrion crossed the gallery, boots clicking. Varys materialized from a curtained alcove. "My lord Hand," the spider sang. "King's Landing welcomes your wit." Tyrion stopped. "Flattery so soon? We've barely shared a cup." Varys smiled. "This city has been dull without you. Rumor says your father made peace with wolves." Tyrion sipped invisible wine. A year and a day's worth. Time enough for new mischief. Varys's painted lids lowered. The queen excises thorns that prick her. Your presence may temper her confidence. Tyrion raised a brow. Or encourage it. They exchanged measured looks. Varys glided off. Tyrion sighed. Between Cersei's smoldering resentment and Joff's adolescent cruelty, he had stepped into a pit of wildfire. Still, in every blaze lay chance of forging something new. He turned thoughts to Sansa Stark, a frightened of stripped of family, but doves cooed secrets if treated kindly, and secrets were coin. Across the narrow sea, a dragon dreamt of flame. Daenerys Targaryen stood by the smoking embers of her meager campfire on the red waste's edge. Drogon coiled behind her like obsidian thunder. The Khalasar she led dwindled daily, sun scalded, thirst ravaged. Yet in Drogon's eyes she saw the continent of Westeros burning, its armies scattering like leaves. One night, Jorah Mormont approached with news gleaned from Carthian caravanners. Eddard Stark freed, Lannister lion trading cub for wolf. Dany's brows furrowed. If the wolves and lions pause, what of stags? Stag antlers tangle soon, Jorah predicted. A Baratheon war could roil seas, making channels for dragons to glide. Dany gazed east where horizon shimmered gold. One day her banner must cross that distance. Let them bleed, she whispered. I will arrive when they kneel in exhaustion. The dragon behind her stretched wings. Shadows engulfed the camp. Stannis Baratheon's letters flew like ravens with flint talons, talons tipped with truth sharper than swords. Cersei's children were Jaime's bastards, the Baratheon line undone. He signed each parchment with the fiery heart of R'hllor, sealed with melted wax red as coals. Davos Seaworth bore copies across the Reach, the Stormlands, the Riverlands, one for Winterfell. When the letter reached Ned Stark, he invited Maester Luwin and Catelyn into the solar. Candlelight trembled on their faces. Catelyn read aloud, By rights of law and blood, I, Stannis Baratheon, first of my name, declare myself king of Westeros. False spawn seat themselves on the Iron Throne, conceived in incest and folly. Lord Eddard Stark, whose honor I trust, may verify these claims. I bid all true men take up arms. Catelyn's voice faltered. Ned took the parchment, jaw clenched. Jon Arryn died prying at this truth. My own arrest sprung from its edge. Joffrey sits upon lies. Luwin adjusted his chain. If Stannis's words spread, the realm fractures beyond repair. Tywin cannot abide his grandson's legitimacy questioned, Catelyn warned. He would sooner plunge kingdoms into fire than see the Lannister name tarnished.
Ned exhaled.
Then we must weigh clan salvation against realm. I swore to keep peace for a year. Peace ends when false kings rule, Catelyn said quietly. Ned's eyes found hers. Shadows of choice loomed. Honor demanded truth. Peace demanded silence. And yet, he thought, what peace is built on rot? At Deepwood Motte, Asha Greyjoy, Balon's daughter, not Ned's chosen tutor, stood upon the watchtower scanning gray waves. Ravens had come from Pike calling every son and daughter home. Ships massed in the Iron Man's harbors. Longships painted black with kraken prows. Asha clenched salt-cracked fists. She had sworn fealty to Balon, but the North had shown her respect. Theon boasted of new victories, yet the old way brewed only slaughter. She penned a secret letter to Robb Stark, disclaiming nothing but offering for warning. Balon's eyes turned to the neck. She sealed it with pitch and stamped the kraken in place, though her heart quaked at betrayal. She affixed it to her swiftest raven, hoping trust might outweigh blood. Roose Bolton's son returned to the Dreadfort beneath moonless sky. Ramsay Snow rode a stallion slick with sweat, escort trailed by dogs gnashing at fetters. In the torchlit yard he knelt. Father, you summoned. Bolton regarded the bastard. A lord must wield terror as surgeon's scalpel, never butcher's cleaver. Will you honor restraint? Ramsay's grin stretched pale lips. Show me the patient, I'll carve careful. Bolton's voice was silk sliding over steel. Winterfell's peace breeds complacency. We will remind our liege that fear sharpens vigilance. Ride south with a band of flayers masked as sellswords. Harass grain caravans, no bloodshed, only rumor. Make peasants whisper that lions prowl under wolfskin. Ramsay's grin widened. And when the north snarls? Bolton's eyes glittered like ice on a corpse. We offer safe harbor at the Dreadfort. Protection for a price. Ramsay bowed, hand on heart. Dogs whined as he mounted. In his saddlebag lay flaying knives, oiled and eager. Snow thickened. Each dawn Ned and Catelyn rode to White Harbor's quay, checking cargo loaded upon river barges. Harbors iced at edges. Sailors hammered fragile ice to free hulls. One noon a courier galloped through sleet shouting of hellkites off Pebbleton. Iron-borne longships raiding coastlines, burning watchtowers. Ned convened a war council aboard the Stormchaser, Manderley's flagship anchored mid-harbor. Creaking timbers echoed as Meage Mormont, Galbart Glover, and Wyman crowded the captain's cabin. Spray rattled shutters. "We cannot sail west," the captain argued. "Iron-borne prowl." Ned spread charts. "Our cargo must reach Winterfell before equinox. If seas are closed, wagons slogging overland risk Bolton's marsh thieves, Greywater brigands, who knows what else. We'll split shipments, half by sea under escort, half along the King's Road with minimum delay." Meage rapped knuckles on the table. "Give me command at sea. Bear Islanders fear no kraken." "Done." Ned turned to Wyman. "Can you spare war galleys?" "3 strong keel carracks," Wyman promised, mustache beaded with sweat despite cold. Even as they plotted, ravens shrieked overhead, one bearing Asha's warning to Robb. That message would soon ripple outward. Robb studied the kraken-stamped parchment in Winterfell's great hall, heart pounding. Theon stood across the table, face pale. "My sister is cunning," Theon argued. "But my father, he would not betray our oath." Ricard Karstark snorted. "Greyjoys drown honor for coin." Robb pressed palms to the oaken surface. "This letter says Balon readies a fleet. If it strikes Moat Cailin, the north is severed from south." Theon clenched fists. "Let me sail to Pike. I'll speak sense to him." Bolton's voice drifted chill across flagstones. "Your words weigh less than victory jewels he covets." The hall erupted in heated debate. At last Robb raised his hand. "We cannot rely on Balon's mercy. I will dispatch ravens to Bear Islands, Flint's Finger, Eastwatch, any who can man the next defenses. Grey Wind will range to root spies." He fixed Theon with a steady gaze. "You may go to your father, but as envoy of Winterfell, not son of Pike. And you will take ship only once the neck is fortified." Theon swallowed, nodding stiffly. Robb held his eyes an extra heartbeat. Trust, like steel, must temper through heat lest it snap under blade. At the airy winter's hush encased sky-high spires in white silence. Young Robert Arryn, cheeks flushed, laughed as he sent wooden knights hurtling through the moon door in mock battles. Lisa Arryn indulged each shriek. Her focus turned to a guest pacing the high hall. Peter Baelish, slim as a rapier, beard trimmed to elegance. "The north strengthens," Baelish observed, voice smooth as honey left too long on a sill. "Ned Stark freed, Stannis thunders south. Renly calls banners in Highgarden. A storm builds, sweet Lisa." Lisa's fingers tightened on a silver goblet. "We keep to ourselves. Sky keeps us safe. Safety fades when neighbors war. But the Vale could profit. Sell passage through the Bloody Gate. Lend airy knights to highest bidder." Robert hurled another knight. "Make them fly!" Baelish's eyes glinted. "Let them fly indeed. Provide Ned Stark 1,000 mountain hawks, and he will owe us gratitude eternal." Lisa shivered.
"Ned, no."
Some distant anguish glazed her gaze. "He brings death. My sister." Baelish stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then sell sword quills to Tywin. Gold flows upward like warm air rises. Either way, Lisa, choose quickly or be swept aside." She turned away, robe swishing. Baelish smiled thinly. Shifting allegiances was his art. Whichever path she picked, his pockets would jingle. Stannis' envoy Davos Seaworth reached White Harbor barely ahead of snow squalls. His knuckles cracked from cold. Ned received him by the hearth in Newcastle. Davos knelt, cloak stiff with frost. "My lord, I bring a king's word." He offered a sealed scroll. "Stannis Baratheon seeks your support." Ned broke the seal. Similar to the earlier letter, but this bore a personal plea. Eddard Stark once served Robert's cause. Now Robert lay dead, his memory defiled by bastards. It's Stannis and claim reap justice for realm. Ned stared at ink that trembled in flickering firelight. "I will consider," he told Davos. "But I have sworn to keep swords sheathed for a year." Davos's honest eyes met his. "Sometimes oaths bind hands while the kingdom burns."
Ned nodded slowly.
"Tell your king I answer in due time." When Davos departed, Catelyn found Ned gazing at the flames. "Honor wrangles with duty again," she said softly. He managed a rueful smile. "When do they ever part?" Along the Frostfangs, Jon Snow trudged through knee-deep drift with Qhorin Halfhand and 3 rangers. Wildling whispers rode every gust. Mance Rayder uniting tribes, cold shadows in nights deep. At their nightly fire, Qhorin studied Jon. "Your father's free," he said, surprising Jon. A fresh raven had reached Castle Black. "Beyond the wall, kings and bastards matter little. But I saw your resolve waver when you heard." Jon stared at sparks rising into trees. "Every son longs for his father's voice alive." Qhorin nodded. "Keep that fire, Stark, but let it fuel duty." He paused. "Tell me what you know of the others." Jon blinked. "Of whites? The cold things?" Qhorin's weathered face hardened. "Aye, we found 2 corpses missing eyes at Whitetree. No footprints leaving." He leaned closer. "War south may distract lords, but our fight creeps silently. Send word to your father. Winter's true enemy stirs." Jon felt the weight of ravens yet to fly. "In the red keeps black cells." Footsteps echoed sinisterly. Sellsword Bronn descended with a torch to the lowest ring where Lord Varys waited outside a heavy door. Inside, the jailer said, "Rotted in filth, one of Cersei's secret prisoners. A city alchemist once favored by King Aerys, locked away for obsession with wildfire." Varys spoke softly. "You are to ensure the cell remains sealed. But here," he pressed a purse into Bronn's glove. "If any Queen's men attempt entry, send word directly to me." Bronn weighed coins. "Secrets ferment in darkness," he observed. "Indeed," Varys replied, eyes like moonlit pools. "Some ferment until they explode." Above them, in Cersei's chambers, Pycelle solemnly decanted essence of nightshade at her request. "A gentle sleep tonic for his grace," she told him. Pycelle's beard quivered. He dared not question. When she dismissed him, Cersei locked the vial away, not for Joffrey, but for any guest who might challenge her hold. Tywin could marshal armies. Cersei preferred sutler regiments brewed in silence. As winter's first moon waned, White Harbor's docks filled with departing banners. Ned and Catelyn prepared to ride home. Maester Luwin's ravens bore letters across the realm. Davos sailed east. Meej Mormont's fleet vanished into fog with promise of sharpened harpoons for kraken hides. On the morning of departure, a messenger burst breathless into the courtyard shouting for Lord Stark. "Ravens from King's Landing," he gasped, thrusting 2 parchment rolls. Ned slit the first Tyrion Lannister's seal. "Lord Stark, you once saved my life upon the wall. I now serve as hand and wish goodwill. Rumors spread of your children's safety. Know that Lady Sansa remains under my protection. I would open discourse to prevent further tragedy. King's Landing minds, alas, are not always wise or kind. Tyrion." Ned frowned. "A Lannister's olive branch?" Catelyn opened the second scroll, golden wax still warm. As she read, her cheeks drained of color. "It's from Sansa," she whispered. "She begs us, Mother, Father, do not trust Queen Cersei. She plots to wed me quickly, before truce ends, to a man I do not know. Some southern lord sworn to the Reach. She pleads for rescue." Ned's eyes flashed with cold fire. "The Queen moves already." "We must recall our forces," Catelyn urged. "Joffrey's promise erodes by the day." Ned turned northeastward where Winterfell waited beneath snow clouds. "I swore a year's peace, yet if they pact in bad faith, my oath releases." He called to the yard. "Horses!" The White Harbor garrison scrambled. As saddles were cinched, Ned whispered to Catelyn, "We ride hard to Winterfell, gather council, then decide." But both knew decisions already loomed. Events pressed like storm swells behind a breakwater, each wave weightier. At Casterly Rock, Jaime sparred with Ser Island Payne, blades ringing in the courtyard. Sweat dappled their foreheads despite bitter wind. Tywin watched from a balcony. After a final clash, Jaime disarmed the mute headsman and flourished steel. Payne bowed woodenly. Tywin descended. "You regain form," he observed. Jaime wiped his brow. Prison rust cracks under sweat. He sheathed sword. "Where do you send me next, father?" "To Harrenhal," Tywin said. "Take 500 men. Oversee grain levies owed from the Riverlands." Jaime arched an eyebrow. "A gilded prison warden on a field of burnt towers?" "Harrenhal sits astride paths north and south. When truce shatters, we hold the crossroads." Jaime swallowed a retort. He knew father's games rarely revealed full rules. But in his gut coiled unease. Holding Harrenhal meant standing between Stark fury and Lannister ambition. "And if the wolves charge?" Tywin's voice never wavered. "Then you will show them why lions rule the wild." Midwinter nights deepened. Constellations burned sharp and cold. Ned reached Winterfell to news from wildling watchposts. Ironborn sails sighted near Sea Dragon Point. Ramsay Snow's raids blamed on Sellswords. A second raven from Tyrion offering parley at Riverrun under Tully's safe-conduct. Robb greeted father at the gates with grim set to jaw. "Everything unravels." Ned clasped his shoulder. "Then we weave new threads." In the gods wood they convened with Catelyn, Maester Luwin and Bran, who insisted dream-haunted gaze steady. Snow sifted into golden hair of statues, dusting the ancient faces. Catelyn unfurled war council parchment. "We cannot fight on 3 fronts. We need allies. Rivermen, Vale, possibly Stormlands if Renly breaks from Lannisters." Robb scowled. "Renly vies for crown. He may offer truce. Or expect fealty," Ned cautioned. He turned to Bran. "You said the trees warn of storms from all sides. How do we choose?" Bran's small hand pressed the trunk, bark white as bone. "The heart tree says, 'Hold the gate, hold the gate.'" His voice sounded distant, older than him. Ned and Catelyn exchanged unsettled looks. Robb murmured, "The neck." Ned nodded slowly. "If the Ironborn strike, they carve our midriff. We fortify Moat Cailin, we call Umbers Karstarks. And we send word to Howland Reed." Catelyn shivered. "The Crannogmen answer only to those they trust." "Then I will go myself," Ned declared. Robb's protest died on his lips. He saw the resolve in father's eyes. Winter may harry a wolf, but each heartbeat fed stubborn courage. That night Ned knelt before the weirwood, sword ice laid across his thighs. Snowflakes melted on steel. He whispered to the old gods, "Guide me through thickets of honor and necessity. Let our children live to see peace." Wind stirred branches, scattering frozen petals. Ned fancied the rustle shaped faint words. "Hold the gate." He rose. Tomorrow would carve another step toward war or wary peace, but he would step unbowed. Moonlight silvered the courtyards when Arya slipped from her chamber on silent feet. Needle hung at her hip. Above, clouds trailed like smoke. She descended to the training yard where Asha Sunderly waited, twin knives glinting. They exchanged nods. "What lesson tonight?" Arya asked. Asha drew chalk circles on packed snow. "Escape and misdirection," she said. "Imagine 4 foes at circle edge. Slip through without crossing blades. Your enemy is time more than steel." They danced among moon shadows. Arya slid past Asha's feints, learned to pivot on one foot, to vanish behind a column's silhouette. At last sweat misted her brow despite cold. Her breath came in white puffs. Asha clapped once. Good. Now truth. When war erupts, you may need to cross foes more ruthless than Sel's words. Arya nodded. I'll be ready. You must be more than ready. You must be unseen. Arya squared shoulders. I won't hide while Sansa suffers. Asha's expression softened. Sometimes rescue begins in shadows. We'll forge your steps until spring. Arya sheathed needle. Above them, snow tapered off. Stars seared bright. She thought of King's Landing's towers, how they choke on surprise when a wolf pup grew fangs. As the long night of midwinter approached, Maester Luwin's highest raven returned from the wall, bearing Jon's warning signed by Corran Halfhand. Ned read it aloud to the household council. Talk of corpses moving, wildlings rallying, eyes like pale ice. Great Jon scoffed. Old crones' tales. But Bran murmured, It's true. He recounted visions. Blue eyes burning behind shattered black armor in a forest of dead men. The hall's torches fluttered though no breeze stirred. Ned pressed fingers to temples. If threats lie beyond the wall, we cannot abandon the watch. He ordered new woolen cloaks, swords, and dried meat shipped north with spring thaw, whichever wars raged. Bolton murmured aside, Resources spread thin. Ned met his queasy gaze. Some oaths stand above crowns. Bolton's eyes flickered like wounded lanterns, but he inclined his head. Spring remained months away, yet tension sprouted beneath snow. In the Reach, Renly Baratheon rode among fields of frosted roses, armor bright as dawn. Highgarden's knights pledged swords. Lady Marjorie watched with calculating poise. At an evening revel, Peter Baelish arrived with sly compliments and heavier counsels. The north is restless, the lions rouse, the stag elder roars with wildfire prophet. What realm craves is steadier antlers. Renly laughed, raising goblet. And who's steadier than I? Indeed, Baelish purred. From Dragonstone, Stannis launched black-hulled ships toward Storm's End to reclaim ancestral seat. Red priests lit bonfires on ramparts, chanting to Lawler. Sailors whispered of dragons birthing from salt and smoke. At Pike, Theon stepped onto slick stones amid crashing surf, heart pounding at Balon's grim welcome. His father's first words, "You wear wolf pelts, boy." Theon bowed. "I serve the north, but I am Greyjoy." Balon's bitter laugh carried across cliffs. "You serve who holds you by leash." That night Balon convened Salt Council to plan a reaving strike upon Flint's Finger and Deepwood Motte. Theon sat beside Sister Asha, feeling torn as ships' anchor chains, link by link. In Harrenhal's courtyards, Jaime drilled men lazily until a raven brought Tywin's new orders. Secure Riverlord's hostages, break rebellious lords. Jaime rolled shoulders. Swords bored him, but politics bored him more. Still, a chance to ride out might relieve restlessness. He called for his golden armor. In King's Landing, Tyrion dreaded dawn audiences with Cersei, but his evenings blossomed with secrets teased from Varys's whispers and wine-steeped conversations with Sansa. The girl's courtesy armor cracked when he spoke gently. She hinted at Queen's schemes to wed her off. Tyrion promised discreet help. Sansa's gratitude glimmered in shy smile, yet behind it lay iron, a stark core unbent. Cersei spied their camaraderie and summoned Pycelle. "Ensure Sansa drinks moon tea nightly," she commanded. "We cannot risk savage direwolf whelps from dwarf seed." Pycelle bobbed obeisance, beard trembling. Every corridor, every castle, every frost-clad meadow thrummed with preparations, as if the very land drew breath before roaring. Yet one night, while candles burned low in Winterfell's library, Ned traced Stannis' letter once more, weighing truth against truce. Catelyn entered and placed her hand over his. "Whatever you choose," she said. "We choose together." He covered her fingers. "Then tomorrow we ride to Moat Cailin. The gate must hold." Snow howled off the shivering sea, battering the storm chaser as Meage Mormont's fleet encountered Kraken prows at twilight. Drums throbbed on iron-borne decks. Arrows hissed, thudding into sails. Meage roared orders, axes raised. The clash lit the night with sparks. Beneath that pitched frenzy, a single barrel broke loose in the hold. Inside it, a message bound for Winterfell. Proof Ironborn planned full invasion. The barrel rolled across slick planks, struck by arrow, burst open, paper-soaked, unreadable. Yet above the chaos, Meej fought like the she-bear of legend, splitting helms, hacking oars. When dawn bled overseas, Ironborn ships limped back toward Pike. Meej's carrack survived, sails tattered but proud. "Send word to Ned Stark," she told First Mate. The Kraken coils, cresting wave foam. The storm chaser's eagle pennant snapped in icy wind. Across waters, war horns moaned. Late at night, Robb Stark walked ramparts with gray wind. Torches flickered pools of light on fresh snow, the direwolf's shadow stretching monstrous. Robb paused, staring at charred remains of some wooden archer's dummies recently burned in training. Flames had flickered like premonition. He thought of Jon beyond the wall, of Sansa at court, of Theon somewhere between kinships. Wind whistled through crenels. He felt weight of crown he did not wear, of responsibilities he had not sought. Yet deep inside simmered certainty. He would not bow to lions, stags, nor krakens. A wolf stood best on northern stone. Gray wind raised snout to the sky, howled once, long, mournful, fierce. From distant kennels summer joined, chorus of living, defiant heartbeats thrumming through the night. Robb's own heart answered, steady, unyielding. Snowflakes filled the silence after the howls died, each tiny star glimmering in torchlight before melting on his cloak. He whispered into that hush, not knowing if wind or gods might carry words. The pack survives, and if the year and a day ended in blood, they would meet the storm together, wolves, bears, mermen, hawks, even krakens bound by new packs or die, their howls carved into the stones of Winterfell for all ages to hear.